and welcome to the Chop It Up Gaming Podcast. My name is Josh,
And I'm Mark.
and we are two mates who like to talk about video games a lot. And we thought maybe one day someone will listen to us if we post this on the internet. So, this is our first episode. We have absolutely no idea what we're doing, but we're really just going to chop it up, talk about some of the recent news, and see how we go with this. How are you doing today, Mark?
Good. To be real, man, I have zero expectations for this, but let's just, if we post long enough and hard enough, dude, this could get us somewhere. What do you reckon?
It absolutely nowhere, and it all crashes and burns, but that's okay.
That's
Whatever
life.
happens, that's life. Well, there's been some pretty interesting news this week in the world of video games, and I think you are probably the best person to talk about this with, because you know everything about video games and you play a lot of video games.
It's a good hobby.
Yeah,
Time
it is
consuming.
a good, absolutely. Um, so I think we jump straight into it, and the big news of the week has, of course, been Game of the Year. All the nominees are out for Jeff Keighley's show, and I think it's probably an understatement to say there's been a lot of controversy around some of the nominations.
Yeah, for
Uh,
sure.
I think every podcast this week, every gaming podcast in the world's probably talked about this, and we're going to do the same thing because why not? So, Mark, I want to jump straight in. Let's start with the big dog, Game of the Year itself. Defined as recognizing a game that delivers the absolute best experience across all creative and technical fields. And the nominees are Astrobot, Balatro, Black Myth Wukong, Shadow of the Erdtree, Final Fantasy VII Rebirth, and Metaphor Re-Fantasio. What are your reactions?
Oh, well, I think the most controversial bit of that is probably whether Shadow of the Erd Tree deserves to be there on the basis that it's a DLC. Um, I personally think that it definitely deserves to be there. The amount of content in that game, or in that DLC, far trumps some other AAA titles. And just because it's listed as a DLC doesn't mean it doesn't deserve to be there. And obviously, the experience itself was such high quality, a lot of fun, and just built upon what made Elden Ring so great, and probably improved on Elden Ring in some areas as well. But for my pick, it's a bit of a difficult one. I'm probably leaning towards Astrobot. I think that was just such a unique experience, and it feels like it's been a while since we've had that sort of experience where it's just kind of whimsical, it's just kind of fun. It doesn't take itself too seriously with its mechanics. So that's where I'm leaning. Where are you leaning?
So, yeah, so I mean, I haven't played as many of these games as you have. In fact, sad to say, the only one I've played is Shadow of the Erdtree. But I do agree with you. I think it should be on there as a nominee. Whether it whether a DLC should be allowed to actually win Game of the Year or, deserves to win Game of the Year. I don't know. And maybe I'll come back to this in a sec, but yeah, I think, Astrobot, haven't played Astrobot, but I have played Astro's Playroom, and that is a fucking awesome game. It is so well done. Obviously, the thing everyone talks about is the dual sense features,
Mm-hmm.
the way that you can feel the sand under you, you can feel the glass, you can feel it when you whack one of those little robots. Um, it's incredible, and I think it's actually really cool that they were able to build a full size game out of this. That Sony would actually allow that to happen, would give them the budget to do that, and sell it as a full price game. And it seems to have been pretty successful. Um, the other nominees, Black Myth, that's 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 awesome. Like, well, you played this, and you can give your thoughts on that in a second. But
Yeah.
yeah, Black Myth, I that's on the list. That's on the to play list. It looks awesome. It looks like I don't know. You would know better than me, but it
Yeah.
looks like a mix of God of War, Sekiro, Souls, all the kind of games I like. So definitely one to play, and obviously something that's huge for for Chinese gamers,
Yeah,
and um, you know that we're representing that kind of culture in a huge blockbuster video game's awesome. Balatro, again, this is another one. I bought a Steam Deck recently. This is one I got to get for the Steam Deck because
definitely.
apparently it's addictive as hell. It's
Hmm.
on my Steam wish list, just waiting for a sale. And then, Final Fantasy and Metaphor ReFantazio. I'm not someone who's so much into kind of the anime art style. Have nothing against it. Just doesn't really work for me. I just struggle with it. So probably not games for me. But again, glad that these two awesome games have dropped with like 90 plus Metacritic scores. It's
Yeah,
just it's good news all around. Good for all the people who love these kind of games. So yeah, those are my reactions.
yeah,
By default, my pick is Shadow of the Erdtree because it's the only one I played. But
hmm,
I think all of them are deserving and really good games. So yeah, what are your thoughts on some of the other ones?
yeah. So I've got maybe some controversial takes. I'll start with Black Myth Wukong. I know that's taken kind of the industry by storm. A lot of people seem to be absolutely loving it. You mentioned that, you know, it looks like a combination of Sekiro and God of War and Dark Souls or whatever. I think with Black Myth Wukong, it looks the part 100%. I think there was a gameplay trailer that maybe released a couple of years ago that kind of broke the internet. To be honest, a lot of
It
people were
has to be
kind
one
of
of the best
amazed.
looking games ever.
Yeah, yeah, and the combat looked incredible. It looked mechanically deep. The problem is I don't really think it plays the part. I think it's not very mechanically deep at all. And I found myself midway through the game, kind of already mastering the combat system. I think it's one of the bosses at the end of chapter 3 is this big grand fight, and it looks incredible. But mechanically, it's actually very simple. Um,
Mhm.
and for me, with those sorts of games, uh, where basically the way the game is set up is that the environments aren't fun to explore. They're more, and that's fine. Like games like Neo 2, for example, and Wolong, Fallen Dynasty are kind of the same, where the environments just serve as places to fight people, as opposed, as a Souls game where you want to explore
Yep.
every nook and cranny. So that's fine. But if you're gonna have that set up, the combat needs to be deeper. I probably think in Wukong, the game's centered around the combat and the boss fights, but at the end of the day, um, fighting enemies becomes this sort of mechanical process, and it's not really super unique to me. Um,
So
and so
where does the oh sorry,
yeah, keep going.
I was going to say where does the combat fall apart to you? Is it that because I remember when you were playing this,
Hmm.
you played like 10 or 15 hours and you were loving it.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden you just dropped off. Was it that the combat stopped being unique? Like did it stop introducing new mechanics that made it fun? Like you felt like you just mastered the game and there was nowhere else to go? Was it the enemy design,
Yeah.
like maybe the enemies just started repeating themselves and nothing new? Like where did this game fall off?
So if you compare it to a game like Elden Ring, which I think was everyone's first comparison to the combat, Elden Ring always keeps things fresh, um, mainly through the use of, like, obviously you're finding new items to use, new ashes of war, new shields, new weapons, new types of weapons, um, and all that sort of stuff. With Wukong, sorry, you have one weapon and one weapon only,
Mhm.
um, and with Sekiro, it kind of gradually introduced new mechanics, with bosses and all that sort of stuff, like the lightning returnal or whatever, or different prosthetics that kept things fresh. There's nothing really in Wukong that keeps things fresh. I already, like, in terms of the combat skill tree, I'd already finished most of it, midway through the game. So at that point, there was no new techniques to learn, And if that's midway through the game and I'm kind of breezing through it, there's no real incentive for me to continue if the game's not going to offer up a sufficient challenge. So if the other comparison is God of War, that they'll introduce completely new types of weapons late in the game, like the spear and Ragnarok, that completely changes up your playstyle, and it gives you options in terms of shields and all that sort of stuff. So even though God of War isn't really difficult, it always finds ways to keep things fresh. With Wukong, with the enemy attack patterns being very, very simple, unlike a game like Sekiro, which obviously has parallels and one weapon and all that sort of stuff, there's nothing really there to keep you going, especially because it's not very fun to explore the environments.
Yeah.
So once I got to that point where I felt like I've mastered the combat system and the enemies just weren't throwing up a sufficient challenge, to me, I've mastered the game and there's no real reason to continue. So I just kind of fell off it, to be honest. But I know a lot of people love it, so I'm not really surprised to see it there, but I'd be shocked if it realistically gets considered, to be honest.
Yeah. Yeah. So yeah, like that's very interesting, and I think like a few things is that the first, if I'm thinking about Sekiro, even in Sekiro, and I should know this better because I'm playing through it right now for a second time, but
Yeah.
um, if I'm thinking of Sekiro, I'm thinking you get most of the core mechanics early in the game,
Yeah.
and does it really introduce that many new mechanics in its, say, second half? Like, I might be remembering wrong, but I don't think it does. Like, your Makiri counter, your lightning reversal, all of those major mechanics you're getting before
Yeah.
Kenichiro.
That's
Um,
yeah, sorry.
no, no,
Yeah, that's true, but I think the new mechanics getting introduced are more on the enemy side. So, like the Ishin encounter, or for example, the owl encounter, I think is a great example.
yeah,
It That's a completely new way to fight an enemy. They're using your own techniques against you, and that's what keeps it fresh to conquer those challenges. Um,
yeah. So it sounds like maybe the challenge in Black Myth doesn't advance that much, and also like um, the the variety of the enemies just kind of plateaus, I guess is what you're saying, and like the bosses.
yeah, like for such the example I keep going back to, which is where I really started to feel the fatigue, was at the end of chapter 3, and again it was this big grand fight, but to actually play out the boss, there was no real difference to just fighting a regular enemy, really. You know what I mean? I don't know if that
Yeah,
um
yeah,
and it was
I
just a
get what you
boring
mean.
fight, even though it
Yeah,
looked so grand. If if I put this up on a screen and showed you, you go, "Oh, this is fucking sick. This is crazy good." But actually, mechanically, it's not very deep at all. It looks the part, but doesn't play the part. I think is my main takeaway from Wukong.
yeah, fair enough. And then I mean, like the other thing is God of War, and you're right. God of War, it does introduce some new mechanics as you go, but the other part is like God of War, you have a really gripping story.
Hmm.
Did you feel you had that in Wukong?
No, no. So that's the whole problem. Like, if the problem with Wukong is it's it's a game centered around combat and combat only. The story, I think I'd appreciate the story a lot more if I was more, um, familiar with the source material of Journey to the West and all that sort of stuff. But I'm not,
Yeah.
and
Yep.
maybe it's a game's sort of responsibility to walk me through that, or maybe it's not. I'm not really sure. But for me personally, like I didn't click with the story at all, just because I'm not familiar with the source material. It doesn't do a really good job of kind of taking you through that. So, you know,
Yep.
environments are boring to explore. They look so pretty, obviously, and some of the particle effects are just remarkable. But the environments on the whole are boring to explore. The story isn't great, and the combat just stops being fun, I guess, once you master it, and you can master it very quickly. Unlike a game like Sekiro, where Ishin will still be a massive challenge.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, that's where I stand on it.
Yeah, and like I mean, on the story point, I imagine if you are someone who grew up with this like story, this like mythology, like it means a lot more to you, and
Of
probably
course,
you're
yeah,
a lot more engaged
yeah,
with the story of this game. But you're right, like if you don't feel like you as someone who doesn't know the source material weren't adequately introduced to it, or you weren't like emotionally engaged in the story, then fair enough, like that's your opinion.
yeah,
Um, so and I guess that is like a fair criticism of the game.
yeah,
Yeah, so I mean, like, we'll talk about the other some of the other nominees in a sec, but like just one more question on Wukong. Do
Hmm.
you see yourself finishing it?
I'll definitely go back just to cross it off the list, but there are plenty of games on the backlog right now, so I don't see myself going to finish it anytime soon. But maybe there's like a slow year in a couple of years because we know next year is going to be stacked.
Next
Uh,
year is packed.
yeah, so maybe I think I'll end up finishing it, but it's gonna be a couple of years, I think.
Fair enough, fair enough. And I will continue to wait. I'll pick it up at some point when I
Hmm.
get some time to play it. But again, I have a massive backlog too, and but I would really like to play this game, and whether or not I finish it, whether or not I have the same kind of take as you once I've played it, we'll
Yeah.
see. But I think it seems like a pretty awesome game, so I'm keen to play it. So another game I know that you absolutely love is Balatro. Tell me about Balatro.
I had a phase of Balatro where I was just playing it every single night without fail, just doing a run and trying to get most insane builds. And yeah, it's a very very creative game. I'm a bit of a gambler myself, so having a poker roguelike was kind of interesting.
And you
Um,
bet real money.
yeah, I bet real money.
That's what they
Um,
need to do next, huh?
yeah, just like loot loot packs or something. I don't know. Um,
Don't encourage them.
but it's very creative with the builds you can make. I yeah, as I said, it's very very addictive. Um, and yeah, I mean, what can I say about Balatro? It's a difficult game to explain just off rip. Um,
So your sales pitch is it's really really fun and addictive. That was your
yes,
sales pitch to me.
I guess the sales pitch is if you're someone that really enjoys build crafting, like
Hmm.
then doing that in this sort of context is like truly, truly unique. Um, and building insane poker hands, like and manipulating decks and all that sort of stuff to get to builds you specifically want. Um, it's just just shout out to this small creator, Balatro University. I was watching his videos religiously once I picked it up to learn new techniques, um, to try and get higher scores and all that sort of stuff. Um, but yeah, I really, really enjoy my experience with Balatro, and I'm really glad I got a shout out because it's just a single developer.
Yeah, it's
Um,
really really good to see that.
and so beating out games like Silent Hill 2, which had an enormous budget and was marketed like crazy, is a bit truly special feeling for them. So yeah, it's a difficult game to explain without watching it. Again, it's a roguelike where you get special abilities and you want to kind of hone your deck to suit those abilities. So for example, you might get an extra score if you play straight hands, so or flushes, right? So if you play like a heart flush, you might get a times two multiplier on your score. So you kind of want to manipulate your deck to only have hearts, um, and yeah, it's just so much fun.
Yeah, I mean, again, one for me to pick up. It's on the wish list, and I mean, I was very addicted to Gwent back when I played The Witcher 3. So maybe
Yeah.
I have a history of getting addicted to these card games. So maybe it's the one. And especially over the coming summer. And for anyone who's listening, obviously we're Aussie. If you haven't been able to tell already, summer is coming, and I will be traveling a little bit. So it's time to get some games on the Steam Deck, and this seems like a pretty good one.
Yeah, Balatro is a perfect travel game.
Yeah.
I assume it's going to do numbers on mobile as well.
Oh, yeah. No, that's a really good point. It
Yeah,
probably will.
it's going to do
100%.
numbers.
100%. Yeah. Um, I want to talk quickly about Final Fantasy VII and Metaphor, unless you have a lot to say about them. But yeah, do you have any thoughts on those before we kind of turn to Shadow of the Erdtree?
I think I'm in a similar boat to you. I'm probably never going to touch Metaphor ReFantazio just because I'm not a big fan of the kind of anime art style or turn-based games. For Final Fantasy VII Rebirth, I think the combat system is really really cool, but it's just really hard for me to engage with the story. Uh, just yeah, that sort of story with the anime sort of thing just doesn't really click with me. So it's hard
Yep.
to play through those parts. But I'm sure for the people that love that, they they're going to be topping the list because you can tell they're very high quality games, but
Yeah,
just not for
absolutely.
me.
Yeah, and that's fine, right? Like
Yeah,
it's totally fine. There's too many games for any one person to ever play.
yeah,
So if an amazing game comes out and like both of these, what Metaphor was like 94, was it? Rebirth is like 92 on Metacritic, so
yeah.
like super high scores and for people who enjoy these kind of games, like that's fantastic for them
Yeah, good news for
to
him.
release.
Yeah,
And by every, by every account, it seems like they deserve their spots on this list.
yeah.
Um, do you have do you have anything else to say on Astrobot before we talk about Shadow of the Erdtree, or would you like to talk about Elden Ring?
Yeah, Quickly and Asteroid. Yeah, as I said earlier, it's my pick for game of the year, and yeah, just one that I wasn't really on my radar at the beginning of the year, um, but picked it
Well, it
up.
wasn't even announced, was it?
Yeah, I don't know where it really came from too, because I never played Astro's Playroom for context. I never
Right,
touched
you
that game.
didn't.
Um, and so when Astrobot started getting great reviews, I was like, oh, you know what, I'll pick it up. And then I just did not put it down until I 100%ed it and got the platinum. So it was just 4 days straight of straight Astrobot because it was incredible. Um,
And
yeah,
and like if I'm thinking about my time with Astro's Playroom, like opening up the PS5, being like, oh cool, there's this free game installed on it. Everyone says this game is amazing. I'll give it a shot.
yeah,
And I remember the exact same feeling as you, just being like, holy shit, like
hmm,
this is incredible. It has no right to be this good. This
yeah,
like little platformer game that comes completely for free,
yeah,
with your console, and it's obviously like just this amazing like tech showcase. It looks beautiful, and obviously I said before the DualSense features are just amazing. It's I reckon still the best um, showcase of the DualSense controller,
yeah,
um, and I imagine that Astrobot probably even takes it further than Astro's Playroom did.
yeah,
But like Playroom was so creative with how it changed up the gameplay, and like for them to then go and do that in a full length game. And I imagine like you can tell me, but I'm sure like it's just constantly changing changing up the gameplay, adding new mechanics, just being really fun, just like Playroom was. That's awesome, and it's really cool to see something like that come out and then obviously be recognized for it in the game of the year discussion.
yeah. Some of the shit they come up with, I just don't know how the human,
Yeah.
like, I don't know how the human mind comes up with the sort of stuff they put in that game.
Yeah.
And yeah, for anyone that hasn't played it, I would recommend just not watching anything. Don't watch anything. Just go play it and just see what it has in store for you, because I think you'll be pleasantly surprised.
Yeah. Now, speaking of not watching anything and just playing it, I think both of us did that with Shadow of the Erdtree.
Yeah. So I think this is going to be
And
the big one.
it, oh my God. So, you know, Shadow of the Erdtree is the best gaming experience I've had in a very long time, probably since I played the original Elden Ring.
Yeah.
It was mind blowing for a DLC, an expansion. And I think before it was announced, or sorry, it'd been announced for a while, but like before we kind of got a look at it, like there was a question mark of, how big is this thing gonna be? Like, um, like From Software DLCs, I think have been pretty varied. Like I've played, Artorias of the Abyss. It's a great DLC, but you can do it in a couple of hours. Same with the two Dark Souls 3 DLCs. As far as I'm aware, the Old Hunters is a bit longer, but I haven't played Bloodborne yet. That's next on the list.
Yeah.
Um, but like I think it's probably fair to say that Shadow of the Erdtree just absolutely destroys any of those other DLCs in terms of its just absolute size and,
Yeah.
and length. Right? Yeah. So like you said it earlier, but it's basically a full size game, and the only reason it's not really a new game is because it obviously just takes all the base mechanics of Elden Ring, but you've got just this massive open world. You've got um 10 remembrance bosses plus a massive freaking dragon who's basically your 11th remembrance boss.
Yeah.
um and I mean, my first playthrough of this took me 40 hours. Now 10 of that was probably on the last boss, but um but still, like 40 hours, It's bigger than a lot of games. It's humongous.
It's bigger than
So
a lot of FromSoft games.
yeah, no, 100%. It's bigger than Dark Souls 3 because I played that for the first time this year and that took me
Yeah,
20 hours.
yeah,
Like 27 with the DLCs. So it's bigger than Dark Souls 3. I think it deserves its spot on here. And it was an incredible experience. It was constantly like, oh my God, what have I just stumbled into? What is this area? This is so pretty, but also, holy crap, this is really scary. Oh my God, what's this new weapon I just found? This weapon's sick. But now I just found another weapon, so now I want to use this one. Like the exploration unrivaled, the sense of connection in the world, the different shortcuts that take you
hmm
between different areas, the best they've been since Dark Souls 1. And also cutting out some of the repetitive content from the base game, like, having less catacombs, but a few really big ones.
yeah,
Um, just awesome and like just one of the best gaming experiences I've had in years,
yeah.
especially talking with you and some of our other mates as we played through it. We're all just sharing our own experiences. Like, holy shit, you got to Cerulean Coast this way. Oh, I got there a completely different way. Um, yeah, like fantastic. Awesome, awesome expansion. Basically a full game,
Yeah.
but it's technically not. But absolutely incredible. So, what do you think?
Yeah, so I think the burning question prior to its release. So if you look at games, other FromSoft DLCs which aren't as long, right? You've got your Dark Souls, Tours of the Abyss. You got Dark Souls 3. You got Old Hunters. Um, because those games aren't like they're big. Obviously they're big, but in comparison relative to Elden Ring, they're not. They're kind of a slice of Elden Ring, really, in terms of size.
Yep.
I think a lot of it was, new environments, new weapons, that sort of stuff, new bosses, which was great. A lot of high quality stuff, like the Old Hunters DLC is absolutely incredible. But when you're doing a DLC for a game as big as Elden Ring, where it has, uh, like Elden Ring, you can do 120 hours if you really wanted to, exploring every nook and cranny.
Yeah, easily.
I think the question going into it was, how are they going to kind of revamp things and keep things fresh? Um,
Mhm.
and I think Shadow of the Erd Tree, in a lot of ways, is a massive improvement over Elden Ring, which is a bit weird to say given how creative and fresh Elden Ring's open world is. But in terms of the open world setup in Shadow of the Erd Tree, the sort of verticality and how it was a lot more dense,
Yep.
um, was the biggest surprise to me and what clicked with me the most. I think the world of Shadow of the Erd Tree, despite being a lot smaller, to me, um, was better than the Elden Ring open world, which I know could be a bit of a hot take. But even
I
if I
think I
look,
agree with you.
yeah, but even if you look at like the catacomb setups, well, there's not really catacombs in the DLC, but they have the jails and that
Yep.
sort of thing. The differentiation between each of those, even though there's a smaller number of them, the differentiation between those was so much better than base Elden Ring, um, and it made me want to. It made it less of a chore to kind of explore those parts of the game, that side content, especially towards the end of Elden Ring. I think you can get a bit of fatigue going through the same setup of a catacomb. Of
Yep.
course, that's being nitpicky on Elden Ring because it's near perfect game.
Yep.
But Shadow of the Erd Tree, maybe due to its less scale, was able to pack a lot more things, a lot more unique things in there.
Yep.
And so the fact that they were able to improve on a game that was perfect in a lot of people's eyes, especially in the open world sense, is just crazy to me. And yeah, I don't know, the shortcuts back to the base area and the verticality of it. Yeah, it was just stunning.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. I think even Shadow of the Erd Tree itself isn't perfect though. It's very close. It's obviously fantastic, but do you have any criticisms of it? Like for me, maybe one area where it actually did maybe slightly worse than the base game was the Shadow Tree upgrade system.
Yeah.
The fact that I think the fact that the shadow tree fragments were kind of scattered randomly, like some of them are at like sites of grace, and that makes sense.
hmm
But other ones you can just get from killing a mob in the open world kind of thing.
Yeah.
Very random.
Yeah.
And like I know you can see the type of mob it is, but like just very random place to get such a huge kind of reward, and it feels like maybe doing it the Sekiro way, where you are killing like important bosses and progressing that way, is a better way to do that system. And the other part with that system is that to get the full to get fully upgraded Shadow Tree Blessing, you actually need to get every single fragment. Whereas in the base game, to get all, say, your flasks fully
Yeah.
upgraded, you don't need to get all the golden seeds, or you don't need to get all the sacred tears. So I think maybe that's one area, very very small misstep, but I can see why some people criticize it. And then
Yeah.
the other part is, the big discussion was the difficulty of the bosses. I think the bosses are all fantastic, except I had big gripes with Radahn on
Mm-hmm.
my first playthrough. We'll see how we go on my second playthrough. I'm actually about to get up to him again.
Yeah, because you know
But
after patch now.
yeah, after the patch, so they've nerfed him. I think I might
Mm-hmm.
like him more now. But did you have any criticisms of Shadow of the Erdtree? Did you agree with that stuff?
Yeah, with the Shadow Tree fragments, yeah, I completely agree. I think the main problem was I think the balancing was off in the sense they had too many. So there were still a lot of Shadow Tree fragments in like important areas. So I think like after you beat Commander Guy, the Rhino boss sort of thing. Oh, was it a Rhino? Yeah, after you
Yeah.
beat him, you get like like you get 5 or 6 of them. I think there were just too many. They could cut out a lot of the random stuff and kind of retune it so the scaling of the progression was a little bit better.
Yep.
Um, I didn't really. I think because me and you, we explored a lot. We explored very heavily before going into some of the major bosses. It wasn't too much of an issue, but I think for a lot of people, yeah, if people just because some people love to explore, some people want to just go through the base game, which is complete fine. I think it kind of neglected those people that just wanted to go dungeon to dungeon, and didn't really have the time because again, it's so massive to explore every nook and cranny. So maybe yeah, like as in Sekiro, um, there's not an insane amount of prayer beads. Like how many Shadow Tree fragments are there all up? Do you know? It's like
Um,
there's a
I think
lot.
there's 50. I think there's
Yeah, there's
50.
a lot. Yeah, there's 50 of them, so there's a lot of them.
Yep.
So
And
yeah,
the prayer beads are from bosses, is the difference as well.
yeah, exactly. Or mini bosses or like side bosses, or
Yeah.
whatever. And there were a couple
That's
hidden away, which is fine. But again, because the game was fairly like in its
yeah.
environments, obviously it's fairly linear compared to Shadow of the
Yep.
Erdtree. Until the
Yep.
last boss, I think that's where we disagree the most. I actually really enjoyed the last boss. I can recognize it was ultra hard, like way too hard, and maybe they should have reserved a side boss for that sort of difficulty, kind of like Mikola. Oh, sorry, not Mikola, Melania in the base game. Um, I think its main problem, getting to technical details of it, was the visibility, especially in
Yeah.
the second phase with the rays of lightning going everywhere. But I felt like I was sufficiently able to learn its patterns, and it did take a long while. But I like that grind a little bit. But I can understand why. Again, it can get to a point. Like there was a middle point. Maybe it took me like maybe 7 or 8 hours to beat him. Hour 4 or 5, it felt like I was banging my head against the wall. But I got there, and it was a great feeling. Um, so yeah, I mean, like it's a bit of a difficult one, but overall, I enjoyed those 8 hours more than I didn't enjoy it. Um,
Yeah, it's fair. I was just getting annoyed because I think there was one busted move. It was
yeah,
like that triple swipe
that
that
triple
stun
swipe.
locked you.
Yeah,
I think that's been nerfed now, and so has the visibility has been improved. So I think I might like the boss fight more on the second go round. So yeah, so I mean, just to round out kind of this discussion on the main nominees, though. So you think Elden Ring should be nominated? Sorry, Shadow of the Erdtree should be nominated.
hmm
Nominated, as do I. And so you think that Astrobot, should be the winner, but taking
yeah,
that out of the equation, do you think, say that you thought that Shadow of the Erdtree was the best experience you'd had this year?
yeah.
Would you still think it's fair for a DLC to win Game of the Year? Because I don't think I do.
Yeah, it's a bit of a weird one. So I think overall, like talking about what I had most fun with this year, I think it's undoubtedly Elden Ring, that Shadow of the Erd Tree. Um, but yeah, like so I think it deserves to be there, obviously. But I would still lean towards Astrobot. I think the Game of the Year is a
Ignoring that,
yeah, Game of the Year is a massive
ignoring
platform.
Astrobot, yeah.
Yeah, ignoring yeah, um, yeah.
Should a DLC be able to win?
Yeah, it's a tough question. I mean, I think it should, but I don't think it's fair because, especially because Elden Ring's already won Game of the Year. I think it would be a different discussion if Elden Ring didn't win Game of the Year, honestly, because I was like, okay, Elden Ring deserves some sort of best game award because it's already won it, and this is more of an extension of that game.
Yeah.
I think it's fair it goes to a different game because there's plenty of great nominees. So it's a tough one.
I so I agree with you in that kind of line of logic. The thing where it does get tricky for me is like, so I don't think that Elden Ring should win. I think it should be nominated because I think you should recognize that it's absolutely incredible and one of the best gaming experiences of the year. But I don't think it should win because, as you said, it is an extension of the main game. It takes a bunch of mechanics from the main game,
Mhm.
uh, and obviously it builds around it, builds incredibly around that base game and those base mechanics, but it's not fundamentally a new game mechanics wise.
Yeah.
So in that sense, I think you should be recognizing innovation, new games with brand new systems. One area where maybe I do find it the line gets blurred a little bit is like, you know,
Tears of the
what's the
Kingdom.
difference between yeah,
Yeah.
what's the difference between this and certain other sequels? So Tears of the Kingdom, great example. It's a fantastic game again, but it is the same world as Breath of the Wild. It's basically the same graphically. It's the same well, I was going to say same mechanics. It's the same base mechanics, and then
Hmm.
obviously they built this incredible building system around it, and
Hmm.
new abilities and stuff. But fundamentally, it's like it's a massive expansion of the original game.
Yeah.
And then I also think about something like, and maybe this is even hotter of a take, is like God of War Ragnarok.
Mm.
Again, fantastic, but it really, and also games like Spider-Man 2, right? Like they kind of iterate on the first game, but they're not massively different. So if we're going to say, oh, it's totally fair for like one of those kind of sequels that's similar, pretty similar to the first game, obviously improves on it in a lot of different ways.
Yeah.
Is it fair for those to win Game of the Year? Which I mean, I'd probably say yes. And then does that mean it's not fair for Elden Ring, Shadow of the Erdtree to do the same? Like, because I would argue they kind of innovate in they build upon Elden Ring sorry, Shadow of the Erdtree builds on Elden Ring in a similar way to how Tears of the Kingdom built on Breath of the Wild, or how Ragnarok built on God of War 2018.
Well,
So, what do you think?
yeah. So I think everything you said is true, but the part of the reason why I think Tears of the Kingdom and Ragnarok weren't actually seriously going to win Game of the Year, despite getting nominated, were because of what you said, that they weren't massive improvements over the base mechanics of their previous. Because God of War 2018 won Game of the Year, and
Yeah,
so
and
did
so did Breath of the
and
Wild.
so did Breath of the Wild. So I think it's actually a very similar situation, actually. So part of the reason those two, the Tears of the Kingdom and Ragnarok, I don't think were ever going to win Game of the Year or really deserved to, were because of the exact things you just said. I don't know if that's a hot take, but yeah.
I think that's fair, but I would disagree that Ragnarok or Tears of the Kingdom were never going to win Game of the Year. I think if Baldur's Gate 3 didn't come out, Tears of the Kingdom probably would have won. And I think if
No, Tears of the
Elden Ring
Kingdom
didn't,
was Elden Ring, you know?
Tears of the Kingdom was last year, Baldur's Gate 3. Ragnarok was Elden Ring year. And so, again,
Ah,
if
okay.
Elden Ring didn't come out
Yeah,
in that
yeah.
year, I think God of War Ragnarok is winning. Like, I think it would have won. So
Mm,
it's really tricky. I guess maybe the way to think of it is like what is the competition? And I think in
yeah.
in a year where you've got really big new innovative experiences, you shouldn't be like I think it's fair that like say a DLC like Shadow of the Erdtree or like a less innovative sequel. And I'm not saying that those sequels weren't innovative, especially Tears of the Kingdom. Like the building system's incredible, but it borrowed a lot from the base game.
Yeah.
So that kind of sequel, I think I think it's fair that in that kind of year where you've got other experiences like Baldur's Gate 3 or Elden Ring being the comparison for Ragnarok, I think it's fair that Game of the Year doesn't go to them. But maybe in a really quiet year where you don't have anything massively groundbreaking and new, but you have a really really well done kind of sequel like that, or in this case like an incredible DLC, which is basically a full game in its own right. Maybe they do deserve to win in that kind of year.
Yeah. it goes to I think it really depends on the competition, to be fair.
Yeah.
Because if yeah, there's so many good contenders this year where they're all kind of fresh and new.
Yep.
Where I wouldn't feel comfortable with Shadow of the Erdtree winning, but as you say, if it was like a down year where there
Yep.
was nothing really good that came out, then I could definitely see Shadow of the Erdtree being the favorite. To be fair, so yeah.
Yeah. Fair enough.
Hmm.
Well, that was yeah, that was very interesting, and I think we had a quite a good discussion on that, and I think surprisingly we didn't butt heads too much. Um, I want to talk to you about some of the other categories, and like I don't think we have time to go through them all, but I want to read out a couple to you,
Yeah.
um, and just get your takes on them. So one of the other things is I think some of the categories here, it's like very hard to define the difference between them. They have definitions, but like we got best action game, we got best action adventure, we got best RPG.
Yeah.
I think there's a lot of crossover there.
Hmm.
But let's just go through a couple of those. So uh, best action game, we've got Black Myth, we got Black Ops 6, we got Helldivers 2, Stellar Blade, and Warhammer 40K Space Marine 2. Do you have any thoughts on
Black
who
Ops
should be
6
winning this? Black Ops 6,
easily. So
really
S-
easily.
Stellar Blade, I fell off Stellar Blade. Same, it kind of similar to Black Myth. I think Stellar Blade was better than Black Myth. Um, so what were Space Marine 2?
Space Marine
I've
2.
I've actually picked that up, but I haven't. I'm waiting for some of my mates to
I thought you
start playing
finished
with
it.
me. Space Marine 2?
I thought you said you finished it.
No, no, no. I didn't finish Space Marine 2.
Oh,
No, no, no.
I'll
I'm
buy it. I'll
waiting.
play with you.
Yeah, no, I'm waiting for my mate to get on co-op. Because I actually started Space Marine 2, and it's a very high quality game. But as soon as you start the campaign, you can tell that it's just going to be more fun with friends, really.
Yep.
Um, so just waiting for that. Black Myth we've already discussed at length.
And Helldivers 2.
Helldivers 2 is an interesting one. A lot of people love Helldivers 2. We played Helldivers 2 together. What were your thoughts on it?
I think Helldivers 2 is a sick game. I didn't get into it, and this is for the pettiest of reason. It's because my PS Plus ran out, and I didn't want to give Sony money for PS Plus, because I already had Xbox Live.
Yeah.
So so that's why I dropped off Helldivers 2. I think it's a sick game. I think maybe we were finding it a little repetitive, but
Yeah.
also we didn't get far into it.
Yeah. So new
And
weapons and all that stuff. Yeah.
I think if we got a lot further into it, we would have been having a shit ton of fun with it. And if I'm gonna pick one of these games again, having only played a couple of them, both of us are addicted to Black Ops 6 right now.
Hmm.
It's the first COD game in ages that like I've been into like in years. Black Ops 6 is awesome, but it's Call of Duty, and I think Helldivers 2, I think it's the same discussion. It
Hmm.
it should go to a game that's more innovative,
Yeah.
more different. I think what Helldivers 2 did in the multiplayer space, like that idea of like this like kind of persistent war that the developers are like directing, and like
Yeah.
you're squatting up and there's like this progression system, in between all the rounds, and you've got that social space with your team and stuff. Like I think that's so cool. It's so smart. I wish Halo would do it, because Helldivers like basically it kind of has that Halo aesthetic, and it just
Yeah.
makes you wish that Halo would do it, at least as a Halo fan. But I don't know. I think a game like Helldivers, for being so different to any other multiplayer kind of game,
Yeah.
uh, I think it deserves an award. And maybe it's not this award, maybe it's not best action game, but I think it deserves an award. Maybe best multiplayer game.
Yeah. So I guess if I'm going off, if my definition of game of the year, I know which I know it's not, but if my definition of game of the year is the game I had most fun with this year, or am having most fun with, then Black Ops 6 would probably be my game of the year.
Fair
if,
enough. Yeah,
if
and
I'm
I
being
agree. Fair
if
enough.
I'm
Well,
being
not game
straight
of the
up.
year.
Well, I would probably go game even if Shadow of the Erdtree. It's
It'd be
got
my
me.
best action game.
Yeah, it's got me in a chokehold right now. And although I know, obviously, Call of Duty is not going to be innovative in the way that Helldivers 2 or Stellar Blade, or Helldivers 2 specifically in the multiplayer space will be, the amount of content in Black Ops 6 is ridiculous. It's
Yep.
actually ridiculous. So you've got a
Yeah.
full campaign, which I haven't finished yet, but I've heard is very, very
It's a
good.
good campaign. Yep.
A great multiplayer base with 16 maps, a ton of weapons, great camo grind, along with season one's already come out with 3 new maps, new weapons, a new event called Hitless, which just came out to grind that as well, and then 2 really great zombies maps as well, which I've done the Easter egg a bunch of times on both. The amount of content in Black Ops 6 is ridiculous. The fact that you can pick up that game on Game Pass for $15 a month, or less for some people who've got like deals. I know you've got like a $1 a month deal or something. That is ridiculous to me. It is ridiculous. If if anything should be full priced, it should be a game like Black Ops 6. Um,
Yeah, that's
and
fair.
although the maps in the base game aren't super great, I think they're doing a really good job of listening to the community. Is Black Ops? Do you know? Sorry, bit of a tangent. Is Black Ops 6 nominated for best ongoing game?
Um, I doubt it because it's a new game, right?
Oh, okay,
But let me have a look. So best ongoing, yeah, no. Helldivers
okay,
is in there, but not Black Ops.
yeah. So that could
Maybe
be,
next year.
yeah, maybe next year. And then the gunplay, the movement, um, like the core mechanics of what make or break a Call of Duty game are all really top tier and the best they've ever been. And although it's not innovative, it's just so much fun to play. It's ridiculously fun to play. I'm thinking about it right now, dude. Like after we
Wanna
finish
hop
this,
on for a
I'm
sesh?
hopping on COD, dude. Um, so yeah, for me, I think Black Ops 6 takes the cake quite easily in that regard. Um,
It is fair. I think I'm still of the opinion I think it should go to something fresher, but I recognize Black Ops 6 is like the best Call of Duty has been in years, and it does do some really cool things. Like the new movement system is awesome and actually like very innovative for a shooter.
yeah,
Um, do you think there should be a category best shooter instead of best action game? Because like Stellar Blade
yeah,
and Black Ops 6 are very different games.
best first person shooter, for sure.
Or not even like could be third person too, right?
Yeah,
But
yeah, yeah, yeah,
best shooter.
yeah. Maybe
Yeah,
Starfield
so
would have got a nomination there.
oh my God. Wow. Did it not get nominated at all? Surely it got nominated like best RPG.
I'll be pissed off if it did. Fuck
I'm
that
I'm
game.
I think it did, but I'm not going to check. But I think it did. Anyway, um, best action adventure. We've got Astrobot, Prince of Persia: The Lost Crown, which
Whoa,
I think you
whoa.
really liked.
Wait. Oh, action adventure.
Best
Okay. Is it?
action slash adventure. So
Oh,
the difference
or.
is it combines combat with traversal and puzzle solving. That's
Astropod is
action
not an
adventure.
action adventure, man. It's a platformer. Is there but there's
Well,
not a platformer section, is there?
they don't have a platform section. So we got Astrobot, we got Prince of Persia, another platformer, right? Which you really loved.
Mm-hmm.
Silent Hill 2. Oh, that's like a horror game. I don't know. This is weird. But
Yeah,
Star
these
Wars Outlaws and Legend of Zelda Echoes of Wisdom. Do you have any thoughts on any of these games besides Astrobot?
Outlaws got nominated.
Star
That's
Wars Outlaws got
crazy.
nominated.
I thought I wouldn't touch Outlaws just because I'm not the biggest Star Wars fan, and also it had very middling reviews.
And
Um,
I am a massive Star Wars fan, and I'm also not touching this because it just seems you're just such a standard kind of open world. I hate
Ubisoft.
to say it, it's a Ubisoft game,
Yep. Yep.
and I love the Jedi games, but like
Yeah.
Outlaws just not for me. And I'm a big Star Wars fan.
Yeah, Silent Hill 2 getting nominated for action adventure is also crazy. It technically fits in that description though, like combines combat with traversal or puzzle solving, because all of Silent Hill 2 is puzzle solving or combat and
Hmm.
exploration, all that sort of stuff. I would really hope Silent Hill 2, if it's going to win an award, because I don't think it's going to win over Astrobot. If it wins an award, hopefully it wins audio design, which I think it's nominated for, because the audio design in Silent Hill 2 is probably the best I've ever experienced in a game ever. You got
Wow,
people whispering in your ear as you go. It is so creepy. There hasn't been a game ever that's creeped me out with its sound as much as Silent Hill 2 has.
wow.
Yeah, crazy. But yeah, I
Yeah.
think
So
Astrobot
so
wins that.
then, okay, fair enough. But it sounds like Silent Hill 2, whether you think if it's a category or not, it's pretty worthy nominee.
Yeah, Silent Hill 2 definitely is a worthy nominee. I'm
Yep.
still playing through it, but my experience so far has been great. It's not as good as Resident Evil 4 remake, but yeah, it's great. It's great in its own right. It's a very obviously very different vibe to Resident Evil 4, which is more of a straight action game than it is a horror game. But Silent Hill 2, I never played the original, so I'm really keen to experience the story. The puzzle solving so far has been really cool and unique. Like it's some of the things they do. Like you,
You actually have to use your brain.
you actually have to use your brain. Yes,
Oh, that's good.
you actually have to use your brain, and
Not every video game puzzle these days you have to use your brain.
well, like God of War Ragnarok, you got Atreus fucking shouting the answer at you if you don't solve it within 30 seconds. So
Yeah.
in this one, there's no real hand holding. There's
Just let
actually
me have the option.
there,
The
there's
hint.
there's a it's crazy. I've never seen this before in a video game, but there's a fucking in Silent Hill 2. There's a difficulty slide of 4 puzzles,
Oh, that's
S-
cool.
so you can make the puzzles easier.
That's really smart.
Like there's one puzzle just to give you an idea of what it's like. Is there's a key code, right? And basically you find a note and it's someone that's trying to the note contains someone that's trying to figure out what the code is, and they put it and they put a code, they put a bunch of codes, and then the final code is like, oh, I feel like I'm getting closer, but he passes away or whatever. Um so I figured out the puzzle by just going up in one, because I was like, okay, if it's close, I'm just going to keep going up until I find it, and I eventually found it. But I was really curious as to what changing the slider would do in that scenario. So I had a quick look online, and if you if you put on easy, the code would be like 1 or 2 above what the thing on the letter was. If you put it on normal, for me it was like 4 or 5 above. If you put it on hard, it's like 9 above. So it's a weird
Yeah,
approach to
right.
difficulty, but it's like I guess when it's easy, you know quickly you're on the right track. Whereas if you put it on hard, then you might do 6 or 7. You're like, okay, well this is I'm clearly missing something. So it's quite interesting. But I
That
love the
is that is
way,
interesting.
yeah, I love the way it combines like the world building with the actual puzzle. Like you gotta go discover notes around, and yeah,
Yeah.
it's a really interesting approach. It's a very different approach to something like Resident Evil, which is I guess more mechanical, but obviously still a ton of fun. Those sorts of puzzles. Yeah,
Yeah, that's cool.
yeah.
Do you have any thoughts on best RPG? We've got Dragon's Dogma 2, Shadow of the Erd Tree, Final Fantasy, Like a Dragon, Infinite Wealth, and Metaphor.
Mm. To be
It's
fair,
it.
I'm
You
not the
go.
biggest RPG guy, so I might leave this category to you. As for the ones I've played, I think obviously Shadow of the Erd Tree would take it from me. What were the other options again?
Dragon's Dogma 2, which you
Mm.
played.
Yeah, I did play Dragon's Dogma too. Um,
You dropped off that, didn't you?
yeah, no, I wasn't the biggest fan of Dragon's Dogma 2. I think it's unnecessarily inconvenient, is the way I'd put it. Um,
Okay,
I get what they were
interesting.
going for, but in terms of like fast travel, you got to do this whole thing and blah blah blah. The way you travel, you got to travel by foot everywhere. It takes a really long time, and there's just mobs everywhere that kind of just always respawn. And it's like this isn't very unique to me. Um, it just made like even like moving around is it's very janky, and yeah, it didn't really translate into a clean gaming experience. Something like Elden Ring.
Yeah, fair
Where the
enough. And
exploration is just top tier.
yeah, and like this is a weird category because like they're all RPGs, but they're very different RPGs. Like something like Final Fantasy, 7 Rebirth versus Shadow of the Erd Tree, completely different
Type of
games.
RPG, yeah.
It almost feels like Shadow of the Erd Tree, like maybe it's more at home in that action
Yeah,
category,
yeah.
but at the same time, Call of Duty is in the action category, so that maybe it's not. Maybe
Call
you
of
need
Duty
maybe you
versus
need your
Shadow
shooter
Archery.
category. Maybe you need your action games to be separate from your shooting games, and then your Shadow of the Erd Tree goes in your action games. I don't know. It's a little tricky, but yeah, these are all pretty different games. I mean, have you ever played a Yakuza game
I
or like a
really, I
Dragon?
really want to play Like a Dragon. It looks so much
It looks
fun.
really funny.
It looks, yeah, dude. I reckon it would be such a great game. I've never touched a Yakuza game in my entire life, but if I were to start with one, that one looks incredible. I'm sure there's a specific order to go through, but there's a ton of them, and each of them is so
Yeah, just
long.
start with the newest one
Yeah, I'm just gonna
at
go with the
this
new.
point.
Yeah, but it just looks like such a joyful experience, really.
It does. Yeah, I've seen like fair bit of gameplay of it, and it just looks very funny. And I love when games are funny
Yeah.
and just wacky.
Yeah, like I've heard it's
Um,
like an Animal Crossing sort of thing in there, like a Pokemon. So I was like, dude, this is gonna be crazy. But yeah, another one
yeah,
on the backlog that I'll get to one day.
yeah. Uh, Another interesting category here, um, and I guess this is maybe changing direction a little bit away from games. Best adaptation. Um, so this is for adaptations of video games into, I guess, like film or TV.
Mm-hmm.
Um, this year we've got Arcane nominated. We got Fallout, Knuckles, Like a Dragon, Yakuza, and Tomb Raider: The Legend of Lara Croft. Number one, first question for you: did you know all of these exist?
No,
Because I didn't.
no, I didn't. To be honest. Wait, is Last of Us on there? Or is that last year?
That was last year.
Ah, okay. Yeah.
Have you watched any of these? You've watched Fallout, right? Or did you not?
Fallout. I watched. I didn't really click with it at all. I know
Are you
you
kidding?
did, but
Fallout was so good.
yeah, I got 6 or 7 episodes into Fallout, which I think is near the end. But
Yeah.
I wasn't really clicking with Fallout at all. I found it way too grotesque. I don't think the games are
Really?
that grotesque. Surely it's not. A Bethesda
I,
game can't
so
be that grotesque.
so I got a little bit into Fallout 4 after the TV show. Um and I think they are pretty like twisted, but like I think just like kind of the graphical fidelity, it's like I get it's going for realism, but like just because it's a video game graphics, it doesn't look
Yeah,
as grotesque as it does on film.
yeah.
Um
I'm probably
but
being a
yeah,
bit
no,
of a bitch.
I think you are. But I think no, I think Fallout was fantastic. Like I had never played a Fallout game. I played a fair bit of Skyrim, but had never played Fallout. And I'd actually Fallout had never appealed to me. Like I used to kind of see the gameplay of it, and there was something about that, like green UI kind of aesthetic, and the I just didn't. And this is just purely just judging a book by its cover, but it just never appealed to me. And then the show came out, got fantastic reviews. I was like, oh, I'll just give it a go. And like, I love that world. Like that world is so funny, and just like it has this such a twisted sense of humor.
Yeah, it does.
Like
It
there's
does.
the scene where the dude has like his head blown off, and they're like, "This is the guy they're looking for," and they like hold up the sketch of his head to like where his head's been blown off. It's like, yeah, I think that's him. It's so funny. And I actually love the aesthetic of it. Like again, I said, when I years ago had looked at like gameplay of Fallout, and the aesthetic hadn't appealed to me, but like seeing it on screen, like it was so well made, and like the use of practical effects, it looked so real. um Felt like dirty and lived in, and like you could actually like touch the stuff that was on screen. I'm sure they used a lot of CGI, but it didn't feel like it. um it was so good, and the story actually had me hooked. Like it was it
I think
was
that's where I
funny,
fell off.
but yeah, I don't know, I found there was like a lot. I had a lot of emotional investment in the characters. So like I don't know, Fallout, huge success for me. It got me to buy Fallout 4. So I guess mission succeeded, if that's what they're aiming for. Um,
You got it for like $4, didn't you? Because it was a massive sale after the show, right?
got it for $6 on
Six
PlayStation, then I bought
dollars.
a PC, and then I got it for $10 on PC. So
Damn, you gave
there
him
you go.
16 bucks.
They got $16 out of me that they wouldn't have got. So
Yeah,
mission succeeded.
fair. Yeah, I've actually got all the Fallout games as well. Um, for me personally, like, I've never really clicked with the Bethesda game at all.
Yeah.
I think they're one of the more overrated developers. Um, but I'm definitely keen to try Fallout. I really want to try Skyrim as well, but I fell off.
Yeah, I
I've tried
mean,
Skyrim 3 or 4 times and I fell off each time, so I'm not holding my breath that it would click for me suddenly. But yeah,
Skyrim is a great game, and obviously when it came out, it was incredible. I I do find that if I were to go and play Skyrim now, I think I would be like, and I know they're completely different games, but I would be like, either I want to play Elden Ring because the combat's better,
hmm
or I would want to play The Witcher 3 because the story's better.
yeah,
I'm just not going to want to play Skyrim.
yeah,
Whereas Fallout feels like pretty unique. Maybe the closest game is like something like Cyberpunk, but they're completely different like vibes, at
yeah,
least the world.
yeah. Dystopian.
Yeah. So I like Fallout a lot, and absolutely adored the show. Can't
Yeah.
wait for the next season. Do you have any thoughts on any of the other shows here? Have you watched any of them?
Could you quickly rattle them off?
Yeah, Arcane.
Alcazar.
Yeah. So, yeah, I've watched the first episode. I hate to say that this didn't click with me because so many people love this show. I probably need to give it a second chance, but it didn't click with me. I've been
Mm-hmm.
told to watch a bit further,
Mm-hmm.
but first episode didn't click. I just never watched the rest. Knuckles. Any thoughts on Knuckles?
I
You like
enjoyed
Sonic?
I enjoyed the first Sonic movie, and that's all I've gone. That's as far as I've gone.
Fair enough. I
Yeah.
did not know there was a
Knuckles show.
Yakuza.
Is it Knuckles a show or a movie?
Oh, great question.
I swear there was a movie
I
with
think it's a
Knuckles.
TV show. I
Oh,
think, let
okay.
me check.
Well, Idris Elba is Knuckles, isn't he?
Knuckles is a TV show on Paramount Plus.
Hmm. Okay.
So that's Knuckles. And then I had no idea there was a Yakuza adaptation. And I also didn't know about this Tomb Raider. It's an animated series. So I have no idea if they were any good or if
I love the games for Tomb Raider, so I might have to check that out.
there you go.
Yeah.
There you go. But yeah, anyway, I think for me at least, Fallout please stand up there. And I imagine Fallout will well, actually no, I think it'll be between Fallout and Arcane. Just at
I
least.
think based on vibes I'm getting, I think Arcane will win. I know a lot of people seem to love Arcane, like a lot.
But everyone was loving Fallout.
That's true. That is true.
Everyone was loving Fallout.
Video game adaptations are getting a lot better.
Yeah.
I don't know if you've ever watched the Resident Evil movies or the Assassin's Creed movies or the Ratchet and Clank movie, but there was a time where video game adaptations were an absolute mud. But now it seems like we're getting some bangers. So I really
Her-
enjoyed the Super Mario Bros. Movie. I thought it was really, really great. I really
yeah.
enjoyed Last of Us TV show. It's probably my favorite video game adaptation. And this seems like another strong year
Hmm.
for them as well. But then you got stuff like the Halo show that's still lurking about. So maybe they're trending
It ain't
upwards.
working out anymore. It's cancelled.
Thank God, but it seems like they're trending upwards.
Yeah, 100%. Last of Us was also great.
Yeah,
But I give the medal to Fallout just because Fallout wasn't a straight adaptation. It was an original story in the universe, whereas Last of Us, incredible show, but it was very close to the game.
that is true. Yeah, but it
Oh,
was good to experience that story in a different lens, and they still did like those new like the third
yeah.
episode.
Oh, the third episode was incredible.
Yeah, it was really really good. So, but yeah, I completely agree. I'm really excited for the second season, but I think Ellie, like as Bella Ramsey, she looks way too young. I can't imagine Bella Ramsey doing the things that Ellie's gonna do in the second season because she's gonna do some fucked up stuff.
You underestimate what makeup can do.
We'll see. I'm
Yeah.
hoping, but Ellie goes fucking hard in that second game, so we'll see.
Yeah, yeah, it's a fair point. I wanna bring us kind of to the close of at least the Game Awards discussion.
Hmm.
And I've like skipped over a lot of different categories. Are any of these categories where you have a strong opinion you'd like to talk about it? We've got best game direction, we've got best narrative, best art direction, best score and music, best audio design. I guess you already talked about Silent Hill
Yeah,
2 there.
that needs to win that one. I don't even know the other
Best
nominees, but that Silent Hill 2 needs to win audio.
I can confirm it is nominated at least.
Good, 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 good.
Uh, and we've also got, best performance. There's a lot of other different categories here, but do any of those stand out to you? Best narrative, best art direction?
Uh
Anything really stands out
maybe,
across any of
maybe
those?
narrative and art direction would be
Yeah, narrative.
interesting.
What would you
Yeah.
give it to?
Can you just give me the nominees
Yep.
first?
So I've got yeah, Final Fantasy VII, Like a Dragon, Metaphor, Senua's Saga, Hellblade 2, and Silent Hill 2.
Oh, yeah, I couldn't really give an opinion on those because I'm Silent Hill 2 definitely seems interesting. I'm surprised Hellblade 2 got a nomination. I think that game got dunked on a little bit. Um,
Yeah.
but yeah, okay, well, no, I don't really know any of those story
And then
narratives
art
pretty well.
direction, we got Astrobot, Black Myth, Shadow of the Erd Tree, Metaphor, and a game called Neva. Never. I haven't heard of this one.
Never heard of that one either. I'd probably go Black Myth for that one, just
Yeah,
because
fair enough.
I know
Fair
it's
enough.
direction, but the graphic fidelity in the game and the particle effects and the different biomes,
Yeah.
and as I said, like the boss designs are like looking at them, it's just incredible to look at. So complete. I'm surprised Shadow of the Erdtree's not in there, to be honest. I think the
It
art
is.
direction.
I just
Oh,
said
it
it.
is in there. Sorry. Well, yeah. Oh, that's going to be a tough one then, actually.
Yep. I mean, yeah, it does say outstanding creative and or technical achievement. So maybe Black Myth deserves that one
I
because it was
think,
it was both, right? It was the technical
yeah.
and
I
the
probably lean
artistic.
towards Black Myth there. Yeah.
Yeah, cool. Well, let's move forward. This is the one last Game Awards category I wanted to ask you about
Mm-hmm.
was most anticipated game. So this is your most anticipated game of 2025.
Yeah.
Um, and I think at least, yeah, no, it's supposed to be from 2025. These
Yeah.
games are all confirmed 2025. So
Yeah.
his list. Death Stranding. Oh, and by the way, there's probably an obvious answer for most people.
Yep.
Death Stranding 2, Ghost of Yotei, Grand Theft Auto 6, Metroid Prime 4, Monster Hunter Wilds. Number one, what is your most anticipated out of this list? And
GTA 6.
number two, has anything been snubbed? Because I have a snub.
Ooh.
I have a big snub.
Well, okay. So GTA 6 is my answer.
Me too.
I'm trying to think of games that are confirmed for 2025. Kind of blanking here. Hmm. Yeah, I'm keen to hear your thoughts. I'm kind of blanking. I thought GTA 6 is the obvious one, but
Yeah. So yeah, for me also GTA 6. I think probably like the rest of the world, everyone is extremely excited for GTA 6.
hmm
I honestly, I cannot wait to see like kind of how Rockstar push this.
yeah.
Like, how do they push GTA forward? Like, GTA 5's amazing. It is over 10 years old. Um, Red Dead Redemption 2 was such a technical leap, like with what they were able to do,
Yeah.
graphically, with the world, with like the sophistication of, say the random encounters, like the AI, things like that.
hmm
And obviously, like the storytelling's amazing as well. Um, so, in all of those ways, and that was 5 years after GTA 5, right?
hmm
2013 to 2018. We're going to be 7 years on from Red Dead 2. They're releasing it on far more powerful hardware. Like GTA 5 was released on 360 and PS3. Red Dead obviously on the last gen. Now you've got the PS5 gen is way way more powerful than that last gen, than the PS4 gen. So like to see what Rockstar will be able to do, like obviously graphically the trailer looks incredible, but like I'm really keen to see with what they can do with things like physics, destruction, things like just the sophistication of the AI and that like that sense of immersion you get like walking around the street. And
Yeah.
I think Rockstar games are probably like top class. The best you can get in terms of that like feeling of like the NPCs walking around you
Yeah.
feel like real people. They don't feel like programmed robots. Um, and like the fluidity of the animations and things like that. Like just Rockstar is just in another league, especially for like that kind of open world game. Um, so yeah, like just absolutely cannot wait to see what they do with that. My big snub is Doom. Where is Doom? Doom the Dark Ages. It looks sick.
Is that confirmed for 2025?
Yeah,
Oh, it is?
I think so. Hang on. You got me doubting. I'm pretty sure it is. Um,
Did they put a release date on that?
yeah, they said 2025. Yep. Yep. Their official trailer on their YouTube channel says coming 2025. So I am so excited for Doom Dark Ages.
Oh,
You know
yeah.
that I
Yeah.
loved Doom Eternal.
Yeah.
Doom 2016 also fantastic.
hmm
And like Dark Ages just looks really different. Like um they don't make the same game twice. It would have been very easy for them to make Doom 2016 and make, that kind of sequel we were talking about earlier, that Spider-Man 2, that Ragnarok,
Yep.
where it's the same game but tweaked. But they fully redid the combat system. They added in like,
The
the
Shield.
faster movement. Oh, no, I'm talking about Eternal from
Oh, sorry,
2016.
sorry. Yes. Sorry.
But yeah. So like Eternal added in like way faster movement combat system. It added in kind of this like resource management element, which some people don't like. I really like. I think it encourages you to switch between the different weapons
hmm
and use your full arsenal rather than just the super shotgun for the whole game. Doom Eternal added in the meat hook, and then like Dark Ages, you look at it and you're like, oh, they can just make Doom Eternal because Doom Eternal was so good. They can just make another Doom Eternal. But no, they instead of like making that super fast-paced game, like what, the game director said was, we last time we gave you a Ferrari, now we're giving you, I think he said like a monster truck, right?
Yeah.
So, oh, sorry, not a monster truck, a tank.
Yeah.
So now you're driving a tank. So it's like, we've only got the one trailer, but it looks slow and heavy and meaty and weighty, and you have a shield with a chainsaw on it that you can throw like Captain America, and it rips people apart. And then you've got like, that gun that like crushes up skulls and shoots out their hearts.
Yeah.
What the hell? What were they smoking when they made this game? But like, it's so cool.
Yeah.
Uh, and like it's software, so it's gonna be high quality. And it'll release into Game Pass as well, so I won't even have to pay for it. So I'm so excited for Doom: The Dark Ages. Are you gonna try it?
I'm gonna try it. So I think you know well that I fell off Eternal, which is crazy to say because everyone loves that game.
Everyone
But
loves it.
I'm there's a game called Ultra Kill, which
Ultra
I'm
Kill is very cool.
yeah, I'm absolutely obsessed with that game, and I just love the speed of it compared to Eternal. I'm sure if I played Eternal first, um, I would have loved it a lot more. But the fact that this is really exciting to me. The Dark Ages. I think the aesthetic, especially, is what grabbed me, like a
Yeah.
medieval dark fantasy sort of thing.
Yep.
And the way they're kind of intertwining that with the combat systems, like with the shield and all that sort of stuff, and the way you move, just
And it's
seems
slower, right?
incredible.
So
Yeah,
maybe you won't be comparing it to games like
exactly.
Ultra Kill.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
So maybe this is a winner for you too.
Exactly. I've thought of a snub now as you talk about the Dark Ages. I don't know if this is confirmed 2025, but it was confirmed for 2024 and it still hasn't come out.
Yep.
So the Hollow Knight Silk Song. Um,
Yeah, fair enough.
I think if that was confirmed for 2025, I'd actually go for that over GTA 6. Just because I'm actually not the biggest fan of Rockstar games. I think their combat systems and their approach to mission design are becoming outdated. I really felt that in Red Dead 2, like really badly. I started,
That's fair. And I
yeah,
hope that they improve that in GTA 6.
yeah, and as I said, even for me that don't, I'm not a biggest fan of Rockstar games, even though their narratives are obviously incredible, and they're technical marvels. Even GTA 5 to this day, even GTA 4 to this day,
Yep.
it does a lot of things that other games just can't do.
Yep.
Um, so to see what they're going to do with GTA 6 with such a long gap is still it's going to be incredible. But Hollow Knight, the original Hollow Knight, is one of my favorite games of all time, and I really implore you to try it. We've talked about this privately,
Yeah.
obviously, but
Yep.
as a fan of even Dark Souls, like obviously the way I'm not talking about the combat or anything, but more so the way the world is designed to kind of interloop is something that I just absolutely love in a video game. And Silk Song just from what we've seen so far just looks like a improvement over that. Looks a lot faster, looks a lot leaner. And I'm just really excited to see how that pans out. Um, and I can't see it being bad at all. Like I could see myself not liking GTA 6 if they don't really update the mission design or the combat systems or whatever.
Yep.
But I just think there's absolutely no way Silk Song is going to be a miss for me. So I'd probably go with that as my most anticipated game. But again, there's no release date. It was meant to come out early 2024, and we've heard nothing, absolutely nothing. So
Yeah.
just waiting. I pray to God that game doesn't get cancelled. That'll be the most heartbreaking thing ever.
Well, maybe if we're lucky, it'll be not just in the most anticipated category next year. Maybe it'll be in the Game of the Year nominees
Yeah,
for next year
here's
if it
hoping.
releases. That'd be nice. So we've been going for a bit over an hour here.
Yep,
Um, so I'd like to just quickly talk about one more big topic that means a lot to both of our hearts.
yep,
Um, the other big news this week was that Sony is in talks to buy Kadokawa, who are From Software's parent company. So let me read you a quick little excerpt from the Reuters article that broke this news. So
yep.
Sony is in talks to acquire Kadokawa, Japanese media powerhouse behind the Elden Ring game. Two sources familiar with the matter said, as the technology giant looks to add to its entertainment portfolio. The talks between the two sides are ongoing, and if successful, a deal could be signed in the coming weeks, the sources said. Um, so, for a little bit of context here, um, so Katakawa own, I think it's around 70% stake in From Software, and Sony also have a small stake um, in Katakawa already, right? And I think they actually have a small stake in From Software as well. I'm not sure if that's the stake they have through Katakawa or if it's a separate one. Um, but basically, this would give Sony, very much the majority ownership over From Software.
Yep.
Um, but this acquisition or this potential acquisition isn't all about From Software. In fact, it's probably not really about From Software much at all. Katakawa is a big deal kind of in the anime and manga space. So, I think a lot of the discussion around this topic has been that, it's not like Sony Interactive Entertainment trying to acquire them. It's Sony proper, and it's probably, or it's most likely to be, because they want to build out um, or even like I guess increase their dominance in the anime space. They already own Crunchyroll, right, which is a really big player in the anime space.
Yep.
Um, and so this would just kind of further, like, almost give them a monopoly on the market. Um, so it seems like that is probably the driver, and that's probably what this proposed acquisition is about. But getting From Software's probably not. Nobody's going to be upset about that, right? Like that's a nice little bonus, or a very very big bonus, I guess.
Yeah.
In addition to this kind of adding to your anime portfolio. About a day or two after that news broke, we got the news that basically the rumor was real. So um, Katakawa released a statement, and they said that they received an initial letter of intent to acquire the company's shares from Sony. But this doesn't mean basically, this doesn't mean that any decision has actually been made, but it is confirmed that there are discussions ongoing. And as the original article said, it's potentially something that we could hear about in a few weeks if it happens to go through. So obviously, huge news. I think probably neither of us is really well placed to talk about kind of the angle, like the anime market and that side of it. But we're both very well placed to talk about the From Software side of it. So what is your reaction to this? Do you think this is good? So, if it were to go through, is this good for Sony slash PlayStation? And is this good for From Software? And is it good for us as gamers? What do you think?
So obviously it's going to be really good for Sony, I think. Um, Bloodborne to this day is one of their biggest hits, and people obviously still crying out for a remake for that game. So it's going to be great for Sony, especially with all the acquisitions Xbox have got so far. And this seems maybe like a little bit of a retaliation, but if it's more so in the anime space, I'm not not too familiar, but if they get From Software, it's going to be a big get for them, just because they started to hit mainstream success, especially with Elden Ring.
Yep.
So it'll be great for Sony. For us as gamers, I don't think it's going to be great at all. Um, Consolidation is not something you'd really want in the gaming industry, which is, hinges on the innovation of different developers and all sorts of stuff. You want as much competition as possible. So I don't think consolidation will be good for anyone as gamers. And the way that Sony has treated the Bloodborne IP, again, there's a lot of conjecture, I guess, as to why they haven't done more with it, given its popularity. Like even a 60 FPS update,
Yep.
charging $15 for a 60 FPS update would get them a lot of money, but they just refuse to do so for
I
whatever
don't think they
reason.
can.
Yeah, yeah. So it's whether I don't know. Maybe they can't.
It's the only logical explanation for why they haven't done it, because it would have made so much money.
Exactly, exactly. And maybe they're
There's
waiting for
some
a
kind of issue.
PS6. There has
Yep.
to be, right? There has to be. Um, but yeah, FromSoft games deserve to be launched on all platforms. If FromSoft games are locked on Sony PlayStations, and PC gamers or Xbox gamers can't access it. It's not good for anybody, I don't think. Um, so yeah, I guess that's where I stand. Where do you stand on this?
I'm the same. So I don't want to see this go through because I mean, even again, like as we said before, I'm not really you know, anime doesn't really click with me, but like for Sony to have like a monopoly on the anime industry, that's a terrible thing. You don't want a monopoly in any
Yeah,
industry. Um, and as you said, like, consolidation in the gaming industries, it's a bad thing. Like I I don't really like um the direction that things have gone over the last few years with, say, Microsoft, buying up very big publishers.
yeah,
I don't think that's healthy for the industry, and I don't think this is a good thing for anyone either. It's To me, there's a question of how this would pan out in terms of, and this is all speculation, right? Like, if Katakawa is acquired by Sony and they are put under Sony proper instead of, obviously, like if From Software is not put under Sony Interactive Entertainment, is From Software allowed to still release on other platforms? I guess similar in the way to Bungie is, but the key difference being here that, Bungie makes live service, From Software obviously doesn't, and I think you have more value in making a single player game exclusive.
yeah.
Um, but so that's a big question mark. It would also be a question of, I think Miyazaki has said he wants to have his games on more platforms. So whether he would have some kind of negotiation sway to be able to push for that, if that is something he really wants. So there's a question mark of, if they get acquired, will FromSoft games go exclusive? I think there's a pretty good chance, but I think there's maybe still a bit of a chance that they don't, that they're treated a little bit differently in the same way that Bungie was.
Yeah.
And I would hope that that's the case. I agree with you. I think it's a really bad thing if um if these absolutely incredible games, like best in the industry, right? Like
Yeah.
just top of the industry, if those get locked to PlayStation hardware, at least, for a year or two at launch, I think that is such a shame, especially coming off the back of Elden Ring, where you've got like 25 million copies sold. The DLC sold like 5 million copies in its like first week or two or first month or whatever. Like, these games are massive. There's so many people who love them, and they're not all on PlayStation. And
Yeah.
some of them will go buy a PlayStation, but not all of them. And those people are going to miss out on these games, especially Xbox players who will probably never get the games. Um, so I think it's just a massive shame to have like such a incredible developer suddenly be kind of taken away from a bunch of people who want to play their games. And it's the same thing that happened with Bethesda, right? Like Starfield was kind of taken away from PlayStation. It'll probably end up there.
It's gonna end up there for sure.
It's going to end up there now, but back, when it first released, that didn't seem like it would be the case. So I'm kind of against it, no matter who does it. But like, I don't think it's a good thing. I don't think it's something we should be cheering for. And I agree with you. It's great for Sony, but I really don't think it's great for anyone else. And the other part of this is the PC audience. PC players have been very frustrated with Sony because they've been forcing PSN integration into all their games,
Yeah.
which means that um, people in tons of different countries where PSN isn't supported actually can't buy those games. They have no legal way to play them. So, for that to happen to FromSoft games, even if they come to PC like a year or two after PS5, you're still gonna have a bunch of PC players who can't even play these games at all,
Yeah.
right? Because they just happen to be born in the wrong country, and I think that really sucks.
I think the only silver lining in all of this is that if they were to be acquired by Sony, is that the quality of games won't suffer. I
Yeah,
think.
I agree. I agree.
Um, I think you've seen with the Microsoft acquisitions. I think for Bethesda games, they've had a really really down year. Like Starfield was not great at all.
Yeah,
Um, Comparative to massive expectations. I think in terms of the actual quality, I think most people can agree it wasn't up to snuff.
yeah,
But Sony typically allow a lot of time for the single player developers,
yeah,
so like Santa Monica or Naughty Dog, to really push out a really great product. So I guess that's one silver lining in all of this. But yeah, overall, it'd be a bad move for the industry. But it
Yeah,
seems the industry is trending towards consolidation. In all honesty,
yeah, which is pretty scary.
yeah,
But I agree with you on that point in the sense that like I don't think people should be worried. Yeah, on the quality front, you're right. Sony absolutely do allow they allow their studios freedom and they
yep,
give them the time they need and the budget they
yep,
need.
yep, yep, yep.
Um, because they do. I think they believe in their studios and they know what their studios are capable of. And I think, some people are saying things like, they're going to turn From Software into like a live service factory. I'm like, it's not going to happen. Like,
I just
yes,
can't.
they've made some mistakes with live service over the past year, but like, that's not going to happen. Sony funded and made Bloodborne
Demon
with
Souls as
From
well.
Software and Demon Souls, right?
No
So,
one gave Demon
well,
Souls a
Demon
shot.
Souls is different because Sony didn't really believe in it, but they
Yeah,
believed in Bloodborne. They believed in Bloodborne,
yeah,
right? So Sony, they're not stupid. They know what From Software can do. They know what people like from Software, and they're gonna allow From Software to do what they want to do. The issue here is those games which will continue to be incredible are going to be
yeah.
um,
Although,
locked away from a lot of players.
yeah. I just although like I feel going exclusive with FromSoft now, it might have been a viable move earlier, but given the success of Elden Ring, I think making FromSoft games exclusive to PlayStation would be leaving a lot of money on the table.
Yeah, I
Um,
agree with that too.
and even though, like as you said earlier, the conversion rate from Xbox players to PlayStation players would, it would increase with the acquisition of FromSoft, but I don't think to the point where it would make them more money than making it multi-platform.
Yeah, it's hard to say where this is on the scale of a like say God of War, which like you keep it exclusive. But the difference being that it's always been exclusive to PlayStation. So
That's right.
are you really losing that much money by not putting it on other platforms? Because the fan base, the established fan base is already on PlayStation,
Exactly.
right?
Yeah.
And I guess a lot of like they have sold their games on PC. That's been a recent thing. And I think to varying degrees of success. But I don't, as far as I'm aware, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, I don't think Sony, those PS first party games are selling gangbusters on PC. Like, I don't think they're selling anywhere close to what they sell on PS5.
Well, but
And that,
oh, sorry. Yep. Keep going.
so I was just going to say that's different to From Software,
Hmm.
where if you pull it from PC and Xbox, I imagine you're losing a massive chunk of the sales.
Yeah, I was gonna say I feel like PlayStation. Oh, I think part of the reason they're not selling gangbusters on PC, I think it's a lot to do with their strategy. I find it very puzzling. Like games are coming to PC years and years after they're well established on PlayStation consoles, like the Uncharted 4 and the Lost Legacy stuff,
Yeah.
Horizon Zero Dawn.
But
Um,
these days, it's about 1 to 2 years after release for
yeah,
new
which I
games.
still think is too big of a lag, really.
Yeah.
Um, I don't understand what they lose by like I really don't think PC players are going to get converted to PlayStation that often if they haven't already. You know what I mean? So I don't
Yes.
yeah.
Sorry, you go.
Yeah, so I don't really understand what they lose by launching them simultaneously.
Well, I mean, I'd maybe disagree with you in the sense that if you knew every Sony first party game was coming out on PC day one, would you be buying a PS6? Because I wouldn't. I'd just be playing on PC.
Mm.
But I own a PS5 right now because I want to play those Sony first party games. So I think they do lose.
No,
I think they do lose some install base by doing that.
no, but I guess my point is that people on PC that want to play PlayStation games first party on day one would already have a PlayStation console.
Yeah, but they're not going to if they knew that, like, they're not going to get the next gen of
Mm.
PlayStation.
Okay, okay, yeah, sorry, I see your point. I see your point.
Yeah,
Yeah, yeah, I see your point.
uh,
Yeah.
yeah. I think that's the difference.
Yeah.
But regardless, I think yeah. What I was saying before was like this scale of like say God of War, where probably most of your sales were always going to be on PlayStation, versus like a Call of Duty where you can't pull that off other platforms if you're Microsoft because
Hmm.
it makes too much money on other platforms.
Yeah.
Where does From Software sit in that scale between those two games? And I think it's obviously nothing comparable to Call of Duty, which is like, one of the biggest franchises every single year. But like,
Yeah.
I think FromSoft on that scale is probably closer to the Call of Duty side
Yeah.
in the sense that like, um, if you pull it from all the platforms, you're probably closer to losing more money than you gain by making it exclusive. But it's really hard
Yeah.
to say.
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly. I don't. I think they'd lose money if they made it exclusive, but no one will really know until.
Yeah, no one can know.
Yeah. Until they do it, or if they do it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, either way, it'll be very interesting to see how this pans out. Fingers crossed it doesn't happen. But like on the other end of this, there's like I do think that if anyone was gonna acquire From Software, I can't think of anyone I would trust more with the quality of the games.
Yeah. For sure. 100%. I'd be shitting my pants if it was Microsoft acquiring FromSoft.
Yeah, or like EA.
Oh.
But that maybe that's a stupid example because that would never happen. But like, it'd probably be a Japanese company, maybe like
Tencent or something.
Capcom.
Tencent Japanese.
Tencent is Chinese.
Oh, whoops.
Um, so yeah, so I mean, I think yeah, I think from a quality perspective, there's nothing to be worried about. It's the idea of being
Yeah.
locked away from those games and making them exclusive, which would really suck.
Yeah.
But yeah, be interesting to see what happens. But either way, we'll keep an eye on it, and maybe we'll be talking about this in a few more episodes because we are going to keep doing this, and this is the end of our very first episode. And Mark, I think it went all right.
I think it went alright too. We'll see how it looks post recording.
We'll see how it looks, and if it looks shit, we're still going to post it anyway because why not?
Fuck it. Fuck it, we will.
Um, but anyway, thank you for a great discussion. This
You
was a
too,
lot
man.
of fun. I know on most podcasts they'd be like, "Here's where you're going to find me," and they'd list out all their Twitter and stuff. I think we're not going to do that. We
Nope.
don't even have socials for the podcast.
Nope.
So eventually, if someone's listening to this, you'll just, I guess, you'll know where to find us anyway, because you've already found us.
Perfect.
And that's the end of the podcast. Goodbye.
Bye bye. Oh my god, dude.